He was the neighbor everyone admired, always friendly, helpful, and ready to lend a hand. But suddenly, rumors began to spread, and the quiet neighborhood found itself divided. So, is he truly the perfect neighbor or a manipulator hiding secrets? Today, I'll share the story of a community shaken by an unexpected truth. In the beginning, he seemed like the ideal neighbor, always smiling with an impeccable willingness to help, whether it was lending tools, taking care of the neighborhood gardens, or organizing community events. Everyone on the street admired him, and in no time, he had earned everyone's trust. The children liked him, the older neighbors saw him as reliable, and even those who were more reserved felt comfortable exchanging a few words with him. But over time, I started noticing some whispered comments in casual conversations. Neighbors who once spoke of him with pride began making hints about his excessive interest in others' lives. Some said he seemed to know things no one had told him. For example, he knew details about schedules, routines, and even small family arguments that happened behind closed doors. At first, I thought these were just rumors, typical neighborhood gossip. But gradually, more and more people began sharing their suspicions. One neighbor mentioned seeing him lurking around her house late at night, supposedly checking to make sure everything was all right, as he put it. Another neighbor said he had caught our perfect neighbor rummaging through his mailbox, apparently by accident. That's when I began to wonder if he really was the ideal neighbor, or if there was something darker behind his actions. Other neighbors also seemed conflicted, torn between believing he was simply a very caring person or a manipulator with less innocent intentions. The community that once seemed so united was now divided, and the image we had of him was growing increasingly tarnished. From that moment on, everyone seemed to view him with suspicion, but no one had the courage to confront him directly. He continued his friendly demeanor, acting as if nothing was happening, while rumors and mistrust grew around us. It was hard to know where the truth lay, but one thing was certain. Our perfect neighbor was beginning to reveal a side that few of us knew. As the rumors about our perfect neighbor spread, the neighborhood's peaceful atmosphere began to change. What was once a friendly, united community turned into a tense environment with suspicious glances and whispered conversations. For many of us, it was difficult to accept that someone we considered so trustworthy could have a dark side. Uncertainty spread like a shadow, affecting our relationships and our sense of security. I started noticing that some people no longer felt comfortable participating in the community events he organized. Even the children, who once ran eagerly to play at his house, were now kept at a distance by worried parents. Some families nearby installed security cameras, claiming it was just a precaution, but we all knew it was because of him. I myself couldn't shake the unease. I used to greet him with a smile, and we would chat about trivial things. But now, every time I saw him, my mind was filled with doubts. Was I being unfair, judging someone based on rumors? Or was it naive to ignore all these signs? It felt like I was trapped between loyalty to what I thought I knew about him and the growing mistrust fueled by each new comment. The divisions in the community became more apparent. On one side were those who believed he was simply a helpful, slightly curious person with no ill intent. These neighbors insisted that the rumors were the result of misunderstandings and an exaggerated concern for privacy. On the other side were those who thought he was a manipulator, someone who took advantage of trust to watch and control everyone around him. The tension escalated when, one evening, a neighbor claimed to have seen the perfect neighbor standing outside his house, watching through the window for far too long to be casual. The neighbor tried to confront him, but our perfect neighbor brushed it off, saying he was just admiring the night view, and quickly changed the subject. This incident further fueled the paranoia and divisions within the neighborhood. To make things worse, he seemed increasingly aware of the suspicions, but continued with his usual friendliness, as if nothing was happening. But for us, it felt like we were under constant surveillance, unsure if he was a caring friend or a manipulator hiding darker intentions. Amid all this tension and the doubts that plagued me, I realized the only way to resolve the situation was to seek the truth myself. I needed to understand who our perfect neighbor really was. It was clear that without answers, the mistrust would only grow and the neighborhood would remain divided. So I decided to talk to some of the people closest to him, hoping to find something that would help me see the situation more clearly. I went to one of the oldest neighbors, who had been the first to meet him when he moved here. I asked if he knew anything that might explain why our neighbor seemed so interested in other people's lives. He told me that the perfect neighbor had experienced a significant loss before moving to our community. His wife had passed away, and he had shown overly protective behavior ever since. According to this neighbor, our perfect neighbor had become very vigilant and often got overly involved in the lives of those around him. For him, it was a way to fill the void left by the loss. He's afraid something might happen to the people close to him and tries to control what he can so he doesn't feel like he's failing, he said. This new information surprised me and made me rethink everything I had assumed. Maybe he wasn't a manipulator, but someone who had lost his sense of boundaries and didn't know how to handle his concerns healthily. The question was, how far could the loss justify his behavior? With this in mind, I decided to confront him respectfully. I arranged a casual meeting with him, and during the conversation, I mentioned the rumors circulating in the neighborhood. I said that, even if he had good intentions, his behavior was affecting everyone, and the community was beginning to feel uncomfortable. He listened in silence, and after a moment, admitted that he knew he was overstepping, but couldn't control his desire to get involved and keep the neighborhood safe. He explained that after his wife's death, he felt responsible for everyone around him, and that sense of responsibility had become an obsession. I realized then that the perfect neighbor wasn't exactly the villain many of us imagined. He was simply someone trying to deal with deep pain in a way that unfortunately was being misinterpreted. After our conversation, I shared what I had discovered with some neighbors, hoping to restore harmony. The community began to understand that he wasn't a manipulator, but a person who needed support and, perhaps, help dealing with his issues. The mistrust was replaced by understanding, and the peace our neighborhood once had finally began to be restored. Now I ask you, are we too quick to judge the people around us? What would you do if you were in my place? Share your opinion in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, subscribe to ReactStories for more intriguing tales. Share this video with someone who values the importance of good neighbors, and I'll see you in the next story.